Hey guys, so I was gonna not hold this, but I'm gonna hold it. Okay, so hello from my bedroom. I am gonna talk to you guys for a quick second about eating your greens because I have heard from some of you that you are struggling with this part of the Fab 4 more than the other 3 areas. I think most of us have a pretty good grasp on protein and what protein comes from. Fats are something that, it's pretty like butter, oils, we kind of know what fats, avocado. I think fiber, we've pretty much kind of honed in on the fact that vegetables are going to provide your fiber. If you're doing a smoothie, you may be adding like some seeds and eating some nuts and all of that, but pretty much you will get your fiber if you are eating enough vegetables. And with the Fab 4 meals, eating vegetables is pretty much built into the program. But greens are one of the things that a lot of you express that you don't love them, or you don't know how to cook them, or what to do with them, or how to incorporate them into your meals. So I wanted to talk a little bit about greens, and sort of give you just some ideas of what greens to use and how to use them. So, of course, I think with smoothies, it's pretty easy, understandable what to do with greens. You're throwing a handful or 2 handfuls of greens into your smoothies. You'll have to experiment with which greens you prefer or don't prefer. I know that I really like spinach as my choice of greens for smoothies, and I would encourage you to mix it up. So if you're only eating spinach in your other meals, you may try throwing something into your smoothie that's a little different, or you might try eating something different if you're really set on spinach in your smoothies. Personally, I'd rather put the spinach in my smoothie and eat something else because I find that it has a mild flavor. So there's that. Smoothies, pretty simple. The other thing you might try, I would say typically that fresh is better if you can use the fresh leafy greens. But I just actually today received my first order of Vital Proteins Beauty Greens Collagen, and it's collagen with greens in it. So I'm gonna give that a go in my smoothie tomorrow and see how it tastes, and I'll keep y'all posted on that. Celia and I both really like the Vital Proteins brand, and I know some of you on here are also using that brand some as well. I've really only used their collagen, which has no flavor, it's just collagen, but we'll see how this goes, so I'll keep y'all posted. It smells like freshly cut grass, so real greens may actually be what I prefer, but I'm gonna test it out for you guys. So fresh, I would say, is always better if you can, but along those lines, frozen works really well, especially in a smoothie, or if you need to keep something for cooking in a pinch, because typically, I think Celia touched on this, but things that are frozen, they were frozen, like they were picked fresh and then frozen right away, so they still are great options. I have found that when I'm cooking greens, I personally prefer things like, I really like kale. It holds up. It doesn't get too like soggy and slimy. To me, I don't like the texture of spinach when it's cooked. So I like kale. I really like bok choy if I'm doing like a stir fry or a dish that's more, has like an Asian flair to it. I like sometimes if it's a green I don't love as much, putting some butter on it helps. Oil doesn't have as much of a flavor to me, and butter gives it a little more, just a little love to make it taste a little better. You can do things if you're not loving the taste of them, like adding, if it is more of a Mexican meal, add some salsa onto it. You can use coconut aminos. I don't know if we've talked a lot about those here, but I'm a huge fan of coconut aminos. They are basically a substitute for soy sauce, and they're really good. So try using different seasonings. I cooked kale one time with a recipe that had me using red pepper flakes and coconut aminos and some chili, and like it was like some sort of chilies, I don't know what it was, and it was so good. So experiment with your spices and your sauces. Of course, be careful to make sure there's not sugar added, but experiment with that kind of stuff so you don't just feel like you're just gnawing on grass. Like, go ahead and spice it up like you would anything else. I'm trying to think what else. So just some ways that I like to use my greens. I love throwing them into an omelet or just like an egg, I guess you could call it an egg hash, like egg scramble, like where you're throwing a bunch of ingredients into your scrambled eggs and kind of cooking them that way. That's a really good way to do it. I like to top things off with them. So a lot of times for lunch, I will take a sweet potato with a meat and a fat and a green and top the sweet potato with all of that. So you could saute it and then just take it with you. You can try baking them for a different texture. So like baking kale chips. I will say just watch those in the oven because they can burn real fast. I like to put my greens under cold salads. So making like a tuna salad or a chicken salad, and then you're putting the greens, like putting it on a bed of greens. So that's something I really love to eat, and I'm just kind of sneaking those greens in there. Throwing them into soups and stews. You really don't notice them. That's one where you kind of want to pay attention. If you were using something that was a little less sturdy, you want to probably throw it in at the last minute versus throwing it in early on. What else? I made myself a list. Obviously salads, that's an easy one. I don't really love salads very much, so I don't do that a lot. I prefer my greens cooked most of the time. But salads are easy if you're like just totally stumped and you need to get something down the hatch for lunch. Hashes and stir fries. I am such a fan of hashes and stir fries. You pick a base vegetable or a couple of vegetables, throw in some onions, some greens, some garlic, and some meat or an egg, and just basically throw it all into a pan, stir fry it together, and you have a one pan, one bowl dish. It's so easy, and it's one of those things you can kind of do with whatever you have in your fridge. If I don't have meat, I probably have eggs, and I can use that. If I don't have really any fresh vegetables, chances are I've got some peas and riced cauliflower in the freezer. So there's a lot of flexibility there. I think that's kind of it on how I would suggest that you use them. There's endless ideas out there. You can bake them into a casserole. I know some of you have been doing like egg muffins, like little mini quiches. Those are a great way to add those in. So, what are some greens? I know everybody's familiar with kale and spinach. And I think both of those, I think spinach is one that most of us are more comfortable with, and kale kind of gets a bad rap for not tasting so great. I really love kale, and I think it just kind of depends on what you like. Bok choy is one I've really come to love that I never really used before. And the first time I did, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with this. But that's the other thing. If you get something and you want to try it or you've never used it before, a quick little search on Google will give you some ideas for how to try something new. And I would encourage you to do that because, for example, I thought my whole life that I hated Brussels sprouts. And then I finally tried them, and they are one of my very, very favorite vegetables. Like, if I had to have a list of like 5 foods I was going to get to eat for the rest of my life, Brussels sprouts would probably make the list. And I never would have known that if I hadn't been willing to try something new. Beet greens, celery, all kinds of lettuce. There's, multiple kinds of lettuce, butter lettuce, romaine. I can't even think of anything else off the top of my head, but there's tons of kinds of lettuce. Parsley and cilantro are probably 2 that we don't think of very often. Those are good to throw into a smoothie just to kind of mix it up, have something different. If you're going to do that, you might look up a recipe just so you mix it with things that they go with. Collard greens, dandelion greens, cabbage is a good one. And same as cabbage, asparagus, celery, and cucumber, I think, are ones that we don't think of as much as green vegetables, but they are. I mean, they're green and they're vegetables. So those are some good ones to use. And then turnip greens. I'm from the South, so collard greens, turnip greens, super familiar with those. Not really because I ate them growing up. I just like knew what they were, and I eventually branched out and started trying them. And the more you play around with different things, the more you'll figure out what it is that you really like. So I think that's about all that I have. If you've got comments on different questions you have about them still, or recipes you've tried that you've really liked, please share those in the comments. I know other people would love to see what you're doing with yours and how you're getting them in. So please feel free to share those. And as always, let us know if you have questions. And I think that's all. So I'll be talking to you guys soon. Stay tuned. We have lots more coming for you in the rest of our 21 days.